Hi, it's Paul, and in this video I'm going to take you through the functions and facilities of my Metabo mitre saw. Let's go take a look. Okay, so this is my Metabo KGS305 mitre saw, 305 denoting the 305mm blade. This one's fitted with a replacement Freud, forget the TPI, but this is a fine cut blade for cross-cutting things like skirting board, MDF and things like that to get a decent finish. So, mitre saw then. What does a mitre saw do? What can this do? So, this is a compound mitre saw. The mitre element of it is basically that you can angle the blade between 45 degrees one way, 45 degrees the other way, and you can cut at any angle in between that. That gets your cutting mitre. So we loosen the end adjuster, press down on the lever, and we can move across to 90 and then down to 45 in the other direction. And I've just pulled off the vacuum attachment. So that's our mitre cut, and then also in addition to that we have a bevel cut, which again will go to 45 down in the horizontal, vertical down towards horizontal direction. So that's our rotational angle and our bevel angle. Then we also have a sliding function so that it will extend the cutting stroke. And I forget what the actual specs of this are, but it will cut about 106mm depth up to about, I think, about 250 odd wide. It will certainly do 200. I bought it, as is said in the raised bed, with the raised planting bed video. I bought this to cut the garden sleepers in the raised planting bed video, and it did that perfectly. And they were 100 high by 200 wide, and it cut through them on a mitre or on a 90. When I cut it on the compound angle, on the bevel with a mitre at the same time, I had to do it from both sides because it didn't have the capacity once it was tipped over. So when I was doing that, I had to cut from one side, turn the sleeper over, and then cut from the other side. But other than that, it has a huge amount of capacity, way more than you would normally need if you weren't cutting garden sleepers. So what else can it do? Well, because this one, and I'll just set it back to straight again. Because this one is what's called a nodding head, in other words, it pivots at this end of the slider, so the slider doesn't move up and down. Because this is a nodding head, if I move it over and run the camera around to this side, here you can see there's a depth adjuster, and what I can do, I can set the depth adjuster so that it doesn't cut right the way through the timber. Let's just pull that forward a bit. And that way I can cut a channel in the timber, or I can cut a tenon. And for that, it's kind of useful. Other than that, nothing really special to say over the DeWalt mitre saw that I reviewed separately. Obviously much bigger cutting capacity. This one's got a finer blade on it, this one's got a newer blade on it, but that's only because I haven't changed the blade on the DeWalt. So nice piece of kit. There's a lock-in trigger on the start lever, and if I move back around this side I can show you that. So it has a lock-in trigger here. Up until I release that trigger it won't drop and the guard won't come off. So I press the trigger in and then I can drop it down and the guard comes off as it goes down to the cut position. That's the safety. Are they safe because they've got a guard on? Well, not if you do something stupid like holding the wood with your thumb and cutting down like that, then you won't have a thumb. They're a power tool. They're as dangerous as any other power tool. If they're used wrongly, then they will indeed hurt you. But it has a guard. It is relatively safe to use. You have to think about what you're doing. So I'll set it up and we'll cut some wood. Okay, so here's the saw now as set up with the borer matrix in it. One thing I'll note on the Metabo, which I wasn't greatly impressed with, the clamp that comes with it doesn't have a retaining screw. It works on friction inside the hole, which is great when it's new, but once it's a few weeks old, once it's been used a few times, it tends to loosen up a bit too easily, and I don't like that. So what I tend to use is I use a quick clamp and add that between the back of the saw and the front of the workpiece to make sure that it doesn't come loose. So here's my first cut with the matrix setup. I'll just add a bit of a voiceover in here to save you getting deafened by the sound of the saw running. As you can see, nice clean cut, good angle, perfectly happy with that. Now let's talk about the laser. The saw's in the lockdown position. I haven't moved the workpiece piece. This is exactly where I cut that piece of architrave, and you can see that the laser line is a good 2 or 3 mil away from the blade. Now, yes, I know I could make up a 3 mil spacer and I could use that for measuring, but seriously, if it's going to have a laser on it, the laser needs to point at the cut line, not somewhere down the road. So I'm not going to say any more about that. I don't like it, I don't use it. If I'm going to do anything at all, I'll take a practice cut first, give myself a reference from that, and then measure from the practice cut, because that gives me a far greater degree of accuracy. So there you have it. Laser, absolutely useless. Clamp, unless you use a quick clamp, absolutely useless. Other than that, a good saw. So that's my review of the Metabo, or my Metabo KGS305. Cracking piece of kit, makes a lovely cut. Clamp is useless, laser is useless. Other than that, I like it a lot. If I had limitless money, I'd have a Festool Capex, because they are kind of awesome. Everything on that, to me, I think is good. There are people that don't like the flat angle of the handle of the Metabo, or they don't like the vertical angle of the handle on the DeWalt, and there are people with flat handled DeWalts who say they're the best, and there's all sorts of arguments go on about what mitre saw you should have. I didn't really have the option. I have limited funds to purchase, so I bought the Metabo because I needed something to do the job, and it did the job fine. So, am I happy with the Metabo? Yes, I am. Okay, I've got misgivings about the laser, but I've never used the laser on any mitre saw I've ever had. I use a pencil, I line it up with the blade, and I'm happy with that. The clamp really hacks me off. It's the one thing I really don't like about it. The clamp on the DeWalt, alright, it's a bit more fiddly, but it's clamps, it's secure, it's nice. The Metabo is, to all intents and purposes, as far as I'm concerned, useless. So I'd scrap it and one day I'll modify it and do it in another way. However, at the price of it, it's great, it's awesome. For my level of use, for DIY use, I think it's brilliant. I was just looking on the screen behind me, I've got the price of the equivalent DeWalt, the equivalent Milwaukee, and you're looking at double the price. You're looking at the best part of £1,000 UK for the 305mm DeWalt or the 305mm Milwaukee, and that's out of my range. You could then move up to even better and better accuracy, better engineering with something like the Festool, or I don't know if Mafell do one, but the Festool certainly you'd be looking probably half as much again as the DeWalt or the Milwaukee. And if you were working on this stuff every day, then fabulous, you can justify it. But for me, once every now and then in the garage of a weekend warrior, if you like, there's no justification for the expense. So the Metabo, for my use, it cuts accurately, it cuts well with a decent blade in it. It does exactly what I'm looking for. So would I recommend it? Yes, to be honest, I would. But bear in mind, if you're looking at this as a prospective full-time professional woodworker, then you might want to think about saving your money a bit and investing in something a bit better. There are a couple of cheaper options you can buy. There are the brands like Iron Hell, I think, do one, and there's a couple of other cheaper brands. Are they any good? No clue. I've looked at a couple of cheaper models in a couple of the big box stores, and I wasn't that impressed. They're very tinny and not well built at all. So there you have it. I'm happy with the Metabo. If you're interested in one, as always, there's a link in the description below which makes this an advert according to the Advertising Standards Agency. If you've liked the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you've got questions or comments, stick them in the comments below, or go over on the website oldmanwith.com and put them in the Ask Questions section. And as always, thanks for your time and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.